r/AskReddit. What's the richest thing someone has done in front of you? When I was a kid around 1975 we went on vacation to Florida. My dad's boss was rich and let us stay in one of his condos in Vero Beach. The place was sick. Shag carpeting everywhere, again, 1970s, and one of the closets was so big we turned it into a bedroom for one of us kids. He let us use his boat to go fishing. It was the most awesome thing we'd seen. Or so we thought. Then we went to his home. It was nearby, somewhere around Sebastian, I think. It was on a private island. We had to have an access card to get through the back gate. Again, 1975. This was some science fiction shit back then. Anyway, we get to the house, and there's shades of shag carpeting we hadn't even dreamed of. Huge windows that looked out on this impossibly green lawn sort of thing. I had no idea what golf was then, but that's what it was. Dude's house backed up to a golf course. A private golf course. On the way through the house we came across this television set that had this weird bunch of numbers running across the screen. It was a stock ticker. Dude had cable TV and a business channel before anyone had anything more than 3 channels. So we had some snacks, some Fresca. Fresca was mind-blowing to 10-year-old me, and went out on the golf course. There was this little river that ran between his property and the one behind his, and he stood there on the green cigar in hand and told us about the funniest thing he'd ever seen. A gator, again, Florida, had gotten into the river, and his neighbor lady came out of her house, curlers in her hair, broom in her hand, yelled at the gator and tried to shoo it off the property. Almost right on cue, she came out and waved. He waved back and laughed. That's the richest thing I ever saw. We went to this fancy restaurant after my child's baptism. The godfather asks for the wine list. The waiter brings it. The godfather rolls his eyes and hands it back. The real wine list, please. The waiter obviously knew what he meant, like this was a regular thing with high rollers, and comes back with the real wine list. We drank good, expensive wine that day. Godfather's treat. I had a pretty relatable experience at work today. I'm a bartender and we have a top shelf whiskey selection to pick from. Not exclusively whiskey but ranges from high-end whiskey to bourbon to scotch. A dude and his friends came into the bar and were asking me about the whiskeys available from the top shelf display. He dropped his eyes on a very expensive Japanese whiskey we have. I'm talking really expensive whiskey. He asked how much for a glass, 2-ounce pour, and I told him $45 per glass. It's our highest priced whiskey. He asked if he could smell the bottle. I gave it to him to smell. He turned to his friends, a party of 9, and told them to all take a whiff. Ended up buying 6 rounds of it neat. I asked if he was sure since it's so expensive and he told me it's not a problem. This whiskey is expensive enough that you have to actually tell the manager that you sold it for inventory purposes. It's taken that seriously. The mother flipper ordered 3 more rounds while he was at his table. I envy the day I'm wealthy enough to drop that much on a fine libation. I had just turned 17 a few days prior, and had some money saved to buy a piece of shit car for $2K. It's all I could afford to buy myself at the time and I did not want any financial help from my family. After driving it for 10 miles, smoke started to pour out of the hood and the temperature of the car was in the red zone. I let the car cool down, drove another 5 miles, and it happened again. I called my mom and dad for help to no avail, so then I called my grandma, also known as Noni. Well, Noni flipped a shit that I wasn't given a safer/better car from my parents. So she picked me up, gave me the keys to her 2001 Mercedes E320, and had me drive her to the Mercedes dealership, where she then bought herself a brand new Mercedes G-Class that had just come out a few months prior. This all happened within an hour. I remember thinking at the time, damn, I hope I can be rich enough one day to buy a brand new Mercedes on the spot. Richest thing I ever saw. Love you, Noni. Is Noni single? I went to my boss' wedding. The whole thing was just so damn decadent. There were over 1000 ppl, a big ass film crane, high budget Bollywood music videos produced of the bride and groom driving luxury cars, multiple wedding cakes, etc. What made me pause though was when fucking $5, $10 bills started raining from the sky and the guests danced on them. The bills were American. I'm in Canada. Too. I tried to be low-key and grab some, but my GF said it'd look bad as everyone else, sporting expensive looking suits and saris, were ignoring them. Understandably, I was cheesed when I asked for a raise soon after, and I was told the company wasn't making enough to justify what I wanted. So one of my bullshit jobs in college was doing door-to-door pamphlet bombing and collecting donations for environmental initiatives in the SF Bay Area. Normally, it's all volunteer stuff, but this time they were hiring people as it was an election year. Normally, it's a goal of $30-50 per day for each person. This girl, who had done this for a year, partnered with me, and she was just such a nice girl, but no one was donating despite her charm. I did a few, and fared no better. Finally, I knocked on a door and a dude comes out. I do the script kind of half-assed, mainly because I was impressed by his sound system in his living room, that I had peaked. He showed it off to us, offered us a drink, and went off to get his checkbook. He comes back with his wife, and she was like, "Ooh, let me get my checkbook too." The guy asked us what we normally get per week for this, and the girl I was with told him on a good week, around $200-250. The guy makes a face, and was like, "Nah, that can't be right," and hands us a check for $5,000. Then his wife shows up, and was like, "You did 5. I'll do 6. And gave us another check, but for $6,000. We were speechless and my partner started to cry. The guy also asked us to give him a call by the end of the week, so he can follow up with our efforts. I found out later that he was a retired music producer who was super loaded, but lived in a normal looking house outside of Oakland. Crazy stuff. Edit. For our efforts, the campaign got us a fancy dinner and a small bonus from the foundation. I saw someone crash a Lamborghini and 10 minutes later a driver showed up with a Ferrari and buddy drove off while his driver waited for the tow truck. How rich do you have to be to have someone on call to bring you a new luxury car when you're in an accident? GTA Online doesn't count. A long time ago, I worked at a security at a casino. I remember once watching a man bet $15K, $5K chips, a hand at blackjack and lose literally every hand without any reaction whatsoever. He probably lost $60K in the 5 minutes I sat watching him. Also, there used to be an elderly guy who would come in and have the entire section of the high roller slot machines reserved for himself. He'd spend 10 or 12 hours going down each row pulling handles at between $100 and $500 a spin. He would usually give advance notice that he was coming, and there would be servers and attendants specifically assigned to him while he was there. My girlfriend had planned on taking me out for an expensive steak dinner for my birthday one year. This dinner included her father, her brother, and myself. She had intended on paying for me and letting her family who was visiting from out of town pay for themselves. The thing was though, this was not just an Outback steakhouse or whatever. No, this was a full-blown 5-star restaurant with all the trappings, and my country bumpkin redneck ass felt very out of place. Much to her protest though, her father ended up paying for the whole thing. All of us, he insisted. Several hundreds of dollars, and a $200 tip, and he just nonchalantly paid it like no big deal. And incidentally, I had just met the man for the first time a few days prior. I had the best steak I've ever eaten, my first glass of champagne, dessert, the band played Happy Birthday, I got a hug from the owner, and all the servers waited on us, like they were butlers. I'd never felt so honored. I remember before we left, her father looked me right in the eyes and said, very calmly and firmly with a smile from across the table, "Happy birthday, sad_Shifada." I heard what he said, but what I think he meant was, "Take good care of my daughter," in that dad kind of way. Or I'm just paranoid. Either way, I was humbled by him paying for all that. I feel shameful just for paying $10 at the Chinese buffet once a week with my coworker. Solved a minor inconvenience by buying a truck. I was loading my car after a Home Depot trip and a few spots over was a couple who just bought several large bags of mulch. Well, they couldn't fit all their mulch in their E-Class Mercedes, so the wife told the husband to go to the car dealership across the street and buy a truck. And that's exactly what the husband did. He walked across the street to a Toyota dealership and bought the first used truck he saw to move the mulch. What the duck? Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe if you enjoyed. Have a good one, lad.